If you're a senior man watching this, pay close attention because the mistake that destroys more relationships after 60 than almost anything else is not age, bad luck, or a lack of opportunities. It is something far more common. It is losing yourself in an attempt to keep someone else happy. Many older men spend decades building a life they can be proud of. They work through challenges, raise families, build careers, overcome disappointments, and develop wisdom that only comes with time. Along the way, they create routines, friendships, interests, values, and habits that give their lives stability and meaning. Then, sometimes unexpectedly, a new relationship enters the picture. At first, it feels exciting. It feels refreshing. It feels like a new chapter. But slowly, often without realizing it, they begin giving away pieces of themselves. They start saying no to the things they once enjoyed. They spend less time with friends. They stop pursuing hobbies. Their schedules begin revolving around one person. Before long, their entire world becomes centered on keeping a woman happy. What feels like love gradually becomes self-abandonment, and that is where many problems begin. Before we go any further, I want you to think about something personal. Have you ever found yourself changing who you are just to avoid losing someone? Have you ever ignored your own needs because you were afraid of creating conflict or being alone? If that resonates with you, let me know in the comments. You're not alone. Many good men have made this mistake, and today's discussion could help you avoid years of frustration, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion. And if you believe more senior men need to hear this message, take a moment to like this video because it helps this conversation reach people who may need it most. The truth is that healthy relationships should add to your life, not replace it. Yet many men mistake sacrifice for love. They believe the more they give up, the more committed they appear. Unfortunately, human psychology doesn't work that way. Respect is not built through self-erasure. In fact, one of the qualities many women admire most is a man who has a meaningful life of his own. I'm Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. Think about a man who spends his mornings walking with friends, volunteers in his community, enjoys woodworking, stays connected with family, and pursues personal goals. Now compare him to a man whose entire identity revolves around one relationship. Which man appears more confident? Which man seems more emotionally stable? Which man appears more attractive over the long term? The answer is usually obvious. People are naturally drawn to those who have purpose. Purpose creates confidence. Confidence creates respect. Respect strengthens attraction. When a man abandons everything that once gave him purpose, he often weakens the very qualities that made him appealing in the first place. One gentleman shared a story after his retirement. He met a woman he deeply cared about and began spending nearly every waking moment with her. At first, everything seemed wonderful, but within 2 years, he had stopped attending his weekly golf games, rarely spoke with old friends, and abandoned several hobbies he once loved. When the relationship eventually ended, he realized something painful. He had not only lost the relationship, he had lost parts of himself. Rebuilding those parts took years. That story contains a lesson every senior man should remember. Never trade your identity for approval. Never abandon your purpose in exchange for temporary validation. The strongest relationships are formed when two complete people come together, not when one person disappears into the life of another. The second mistake many senior men make is investing too much before someone has earned a meaningful place in their lives. This often comes from a good heart. A man meets a woman he enjoys spending time with. She seems kind, attentive, and pleasant. Naturally, he wants to show appreciation. He offers support. He gives attention. He makes himself available. He may even begin making sacrifices long before a true foundation has been established. On the surface, this appears generous, but there is an important psychological principle at work here. People tend to value what they earn more than what they receive freely. When trust, commitment, emotional investment, and access to your life are handed over immediately, they often lose some of their significance. This is why emotional discipline becomes so important later in life. Imagine purchasing a home. Would you buy it after looking at it for 5 minutes? Of course not. You would inspect it carefully. You would ask questions. You would evaluate potential problems. You would gather information. Yet many people are far more careful about buying a house than they are about choosing a partner. Attraction can be immediate. Character takes time to reveal itself. This is especially important after 60 because your resources are valuable. Not just financial resources, but emotional resources. Time becomes more precious. Energy becomes more precious. Peace becomes more precious. A wise man understands that dating is not simply about being chosen. It is also about choosing wisely. When you meet someone new, ask yourself questions. Does she keep her promises? Does she communicate honestly? Does she take responsibility for mistakes? How does she treat people when she has nothing to gain? How does she handle disappointment? How does she respond when things don't go her way? These questions reveal far more about long-term compatibility than chemistry alone. One common mistake is confusing attention with character. Someone may be very interested in you during the early stages of a relationship. They may send thoughtful messages, offer compliments, and appear highly engaged. But interest and integrity are not the same thing. Character reveals itself through consistency. That's why patience is such a powerful advantage. Patience allows truth to emerge. Patience protects you from making emotional decisions based solely on loneliness. Patience helps you distinguish between genuine compatibility and temporary excitement. A woman who genuinely values you will not be threatened by your willingness to move slowly. In many cases, she will respect it. The third thing many senior men should never do is tolerate disrespect, even when it appears small. This topic deserves careful attention because disrespect rarely arrives dramatically. It usually begins quietly. A dismissive comment, a sarcastic remark, a pattern of interruptions, a tendency to mock your opinions, a habit of minimizing your feelings. Individually, these moments may seem insignificant. Together, they create a pattern. Many men convince themselves they are being mature by staying silent. They tell themselves they are avoiding unnecessary conflict. They don't want arguments. They don't want tension. But there is a difference between maintaining peace and surrendering self-respect. Every relationship teaches people how to treat us. When disrespect repeatedly goes unaddressed, it often becomes normalized. Imagine allowing someone to cross a small boundary today, then another tomorrow, then another next week. Eventually, behaviors that once felt unacceptable begin feeling routine. This is how many relationships slowly deteriorate, not because of one major event, but because small violations accumulate over time. One retired teacher shared an experience that perfectly illustrates this point. His partner frequently made jokes about him in front of friends. At first, he laughed along because he didn't want to appear sensitive. Over time, the jokes became more frequent and more personal. Eventually, he realized he dreaded social gatherings because he expected to be embarrassed. When he finally addressed the issue calmly and respectfully, something interesting happened. The behavior changed. Why? Because he communicated a standard. Strong boundaries do not require anger. Strong boundaries require clarity. The most respected people are rarely the loudest people. They are simply clear about what they will and will not accept. There is tremendous power in calmly saying, "That doesn't work for me." No yelling, no drama, no emotional outburst, just self-respect. A healthy partner will recognize and appreciate those boundaries. An unhealthy partner may resist them. Either response provides valuable information. The fourth mistake many senior men make is becoming a woman's financial plan rather than her partner. This topic can be uncomfortable, but it needs to be discussed honestly. Many older men have spent decades building financial stability. They worked hard, they sacrificed, they saved, they planned. They made responsible decisions so they could enjoy greater freedom later in life. Unfortunately, some men unknowingly place that freedom at risk. It often starts with something small: a request for help, a temporary emergency, a difficult situation, a bill that needs paying. By itself, helping someone isn't a problem. Generosity is a beautiful quality. The problem occurs when financial support becomes the foundation of the relationship, rather than a natural expression of it. There is an important distinction between being appreciated and being needed for what you provide. One creates connection, the other creates dependency. And dependency can sometimes disguise itself as affection. This is particularly important when dating someone significantly younger. Now, not every younger woman has questionable intentions. Many younger women enter relationships with sincerity and genuine affection. But wisdom requires observation. Look at actions, not fantasies. Pay attention to consistency, not promises. Ask yourself difficult questions. If your financial situation changed tomorrow, would her level of interest remain the same? Would her behavior remain consistent? Would she still value your company if material benefits disappeared? These questions are not cynical, they are practical. Because after 60, your financial resources represent more than money. They represent freedom. They represent security. They represent independence. And protecting them is not selfish, it is responsible. As we continue, the next lesson may be one of the most important in the entire discussion because it addresses a mistake that quietly causes many men to lower their standards without even realizing it. And once that begins, almost every other relationship problem becomes easier to understand. The fifth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is apologize for having standards. One of the strangest shifts that can happen as men grow older is the belief that they should simply be grateful for any attention they receive. Somewhere along the way, some men begin convincing themselves that their standards are no longer important. They start thinking they should overlook behaviors that would have bothered them years earlier. They tolerate things they know are unhealthy because they fear that another opportunity may never come. But fear is a terrible foundation for any relationship. The moment a man begins negotiating against himself, he weakens his position without anyone even asking him to. He starts making excuses for behavior that conflicts with his values. He ignores warning signs. He remains silent when something feels wrong. Over time, this creates resentment, and resentment has a way of quietly destroying connection. The reality is that standards become more important with age, not less important. By now you know what creates peace and what creates chaos. You know what honesty looks like. You know the value of consistency. You understand the importance of loyalty, kindness, accountability, and emotional maturity. Why spend decades learning those lessons only to abandon them because you're afraid of being alone? One of the most powerful mindset shifts any senior man can make is understanding that being alone is not the same thing as being lonely. Many people are surrounded by others and still feel lonely. Meanwhile, some people live independently and feel deeply fulfilled because they have purpose, friendships, family connections, hobbies, and meaningful routines. A healthy relationship should complement a good life. It should not become a substitute for one. If a woman becomes upset because you expect honesty, respect, effort, and accountability, pay attention. Her reaction is providing valuable information. The right person may not agree with every preference you have, but they will respect your right to have standards. The wrong person will pressure you to abandon them, and that's a distinction worth remembering. If you're enjoying this discussion so far, take a moment to subscribe and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. These conversations can help people avoid painful mistakes and build healthier relationships in the years ahead. The sixth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is chase her after she starts pulling away. This is one of the most common traps in modern relationships. A woman becomes less responsive. Messages take longer to receive a reply. Conversations feel different. Her enthusiasm changes. And immediately, many men assume they must do more. More calls, more messages, more attention, more effort, more reassurance. The thinking sounds logical. If I show her how much I care, she'll come back. Unfortunately, relationships rarely work that way. In fact, chasing often creates the opposite effect. When one person begins pursuing harder and harder, the balance of the relationship starts shifting. One person becomes the pursuer, the other becomes the decision maker. Soon, one individual is investing increasing amounts of energy while receiving decreasing amounts in return. This creates frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Here's something important to remember. Attraction cannot be negotiated. Respect cannot be begged for. Interest cannot be forced. A woman who genuinely wants you in her life will make room for you. She may be busy. She may have responsibilities. She may occasionally need space, but she will still make an effort. Effort is one of the clearest signs of genuine interest. When someone values a relationship, they participate in maintaining it. One gentleman in his 70s shared a lesson he learned after a difficult breakup. He spent nearly a year trying to convince a woman to continue the relationship. He wrote long messages, purchased thoughtful gifts, and repeatedly attempted to reconnect. Eventually, he stopped. Several months later, he realized something surprising. The exhaustion disappeared. The anxiety disappeared. The constant uncertainty disappeared. And he discovered that much of his suffering had come not from losing the relationship, but from refusing to accept reality. Sometimes the most powerful action is not chasing. Sometimes the most powerful action is letting go. A man who respects himself understands that not every connection is meant to last forever, and that's okay. The seventh thing a senior man should never do for a woman is allow her to control his emotional state. This lesson becomes increasingly important as we age, because peace becomes one of life's greatest treasures. Many men spend decades developing emotional resilience. They survive hardships, disappointments, losses, setbacks, and unexpected challenges. Yet surprisingly, some still hand over control of their emotional well-being to another person. Their mood depends on her mood. Their confidence depends on her approval. Their happiness depends on her attention. Their sense of worth depends on her validation. This creates a dangerous form of emotional dependency. Healthy relationships involve emotional connection. Unhealthy relationships involve emotional control. There's a significant difference. Imagine waking up every morning wondering what version of your partner you're going to encounter. Will she be affectionate? Will she be distant? Will she be supportive? Will she be critical? Will she be warm? Will she be cold? Living in that state of uncertainty is exhausting. Over time, it erodes confidence and creates anxiety. Psychologists often talk about emotional regulation, the ability to maintain inner stability regardless of external circumstances. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means remaining grounded. It means understanding that another person's mood should not completely determine your own. Women often respect men who demonstrate emotional steadiness, not because those men suppress their feelings, but because they manage them effectively. They don't panic during conflict. They don't overreact to every challenge. They remain thoughtful when situations become emotional. After 60, protecting your peace should become a priority. A relationship should contribute to emotional stability, not constantly undermine it. The eighth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is become responsible for fixing every problem in her life. This mistake usually comes from kindness. Many older men are natural problem solvers. They have spent decades finding solutions. They have managed households, businesses, careers, finances, and family responsibilities. Helping feels natural. But there is a difference between helping and rescuing. A healthy partner appreciates support. An unhealthy partner expects rescue. When a relationship becomes centered on solving another person's problems, something important gets lost. Partnership. Instead of walking beside someone, you begin carrying them, and carrying another adult indefinitely is exhausting. Think about the healthiest relationships you've ever seen. Were they built on one person constantly saving the other? Probably not. They were likely built on shared responsibility, mutual effort, mutual respect, mutual accountability. Both individuals contributed. Both individuals took ownership of their lives. One of the greatest gifts you can offer someone is encouragement. One of the greatest mistakes you can make is assuming responsibility for problems they refuse to address themselves. Support should empower people. It should not create dependency. If someone consistently expects you to solve financial problems, emotional problems, personal problems, and consequences resulting from their own choices, it may be time to reevaluate the relationship. Because after 60, your energy is valuable. Spend it wisely. The ninth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is allow himself to become isolated from the people and activities that keep him grounded. This often happens so gradually that it goes unnoticed. A few missed gatherings, a few canceled plans, a little less time spent with friends, a little less contact with family, a hobby quietly abandoned, a routine slowly forgotten. Months pass, then years, and suddenly the relationship becomes the center of everything. This is dangerous because no single person should become your entire world. The happiest senior men often have something in common. They maintain balance. They stay connected to friends. They remain involved with family. They pursue meaningful interests. They continue learning. They continue growing. Their lives remain rich and diverse. Research consistently shows that social connection plays a significant role in emotional well-being, especially later in life. Friendships provide perspective. Activities provide purpose. Family provides connection. When those things disappear, emotional dependence often increases. A wise woman will encourage your independence. She will support your friendships. She will respect your interests. She will appreciate that you have a life beyond the relationship. Because healthy love expands life, it doesn't shrink it. Never give up the relationships and activities that help you remain grounded. Those connections are not competing with your relationship, they strengthen it. And finally, the 10th thing a senior man should never do for a woman is give love before he receives respect. This may be the most important lesson in today's discussion because nearly every mistake we've talked about ultimately connects to this principle. Many men lead with generosity. They lead with affection. They lead with patience. They lead with attention. They lead with giving. And while those qualities are admirable, They are not enough by themselves. Respect must be present. Without respect, even genuine love struggles to survive. Respect influences how someone speaks to you. Respect influences how they treat your time. Respect influences how they handle disagreements. Respect influences how they respond to your boundaries. Respect influences how much effort they invest in maintaining the relationship. When respect is absent, a man often finds himself giving more and more while receiving less and less. He works harder. He sacrifices more. He tries to prove his value. Yet the relationship never feels secure. Why? Because respect cannot be purchased. It cannot be earned through endless giving. It comes from how you carry yourself. It comes from your standards. It comes from your boundaries. It comes from your confidence. It comes from your willingness to walk away from situations that diminish your worth. A woman who respects you values your presence. She values your opinions. She values your time. She values your boundaries. She values the life you've built. And that brings us to the most important reminder of all. After 60, your peace is priceless. Your time is precious. Your energy is limited. Protect all three. The happiest senior men are not necessarily the richest men, the most attractive men, or the men who receive the most attention. They are the men who know their value. They are the men who maintain their standards. They are the men who refuse to abandon themselves in order to keep someone else. When you truly understand that, everything changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop tolerating poor treatment. You stop settling for relationships that drain your spirit. And you begin attracting people who appreciate the man you already are. Because after 60, the goal is not to find someone who completes your life. The goal is to find someone who respects the life you have already built. If this message resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Which lesson stood out the most? And which one do you think more men need to hear? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Senior Mindful Living, and turn on notifications so you never miss future discussions designed to help you build stronger relationships, greater confidence, and a more fulfilling life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.